Welcome back to our front. My name is Raymond Aqua. Today, we ask the questions on the fight against corruption here in the Republic of Ghana, as was promised by the NPP some months down the line when it was campaigning. We go to Parliament and speak to the chairman of the Parliamentary Legal, and it's a very long word, but Legal Constitutional Affairs Committee Chairman, the Honorable Ben Abdallah Banda. Is also the MP for Finso South. Honorable, you're welcome to our front.
Thank you.
Your committee's name mostly sometimes.
Committee on Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs.
Brilliant. So now, this particular committee really has been dealing with the big particular promise on the Special Prosecutor Bill. That bill had to be put on the ice when there was an issue to do with whether or not it should go through what they call an emergency process.
Under a certificate of urgency.
Certificate of urgency, yes, as you guys call it in Parliament. That was stepped down. But our conversation today is to be able to get to appreciate exactly what is happening on the president's promise to fight corruption. After all, you in Parliament know probably more than the rest of this republic on this particular issue. But you're welcome once again.
Thank you very much.
So first and foremost, what's the status of this Special Prosecutors Bill?
The status is that, when the committee, in its wisdom and after an expansive consultation, thought that the bill is such that it ought not to be treated under a certificate of urgency, we submitted our recommendation to Parliament, and the bill was withdrawn and relayed and referred to us. So we've gotten to a stage where on the 13th and 14th, we've decided to conduct a stakeholder engagement.
Okay.
To which we've invited civil society organizations, experts, individuals, media, and any other person who thinks he or she has something to input into the making of the law. So 13th, 14th, that will be the stakeholder engagement. When we are done with that, we need to travel in order to get experiences from established democracies. There are certain countries in Africa and elsewhere that practice this kind of legal regime.
And you certainly need to travel
Malaysia.
to these countries
we need to travel in order to get experiences from those established democracies.
These democracies on how they do it, the Special Prosecutors Bill, the examples of the West and the examples of the countries where it has worked to perfection are always published. How is it that you have to see it for yourself?
You have to go there and visit the office and have a tete-a-tete conversation. There are certain things that you read and will not get the nitty-gritty of it. But if you travel and visit the office and have a tete-a-tete conversation with the occupant of the office, then you'll be able to know how the office in effect or practically operates. But when you sit here in Ghana and decide to look for information on the net, you might get some information, but probably the information that you need might not be as detailed as you want it to be. So there's the need for us to travel.
Okay.
And thereafter, the committee.
So next week, Wednesday and Thursday, is when you will start the engagement with the public.
That is so.
Okay, that's interesting. But I mean, this is still during the time where the Parliament of Ghana is on recess.
Yeah,
right?
we are on recess. So we want to fast track the process and finish everything before Parliament resumes come October 3rd or come October 4th.
There's an outstanding matter. Beyond having to engage largely with the populists, what else prompted this particular bill not being taken through the certificate of urgency?
If we had taken this bill through the certificate of urgency, what it will mean is that the bill would have been passed into a law within a day. Public wouldn't have had the opportunity of inputting into the making of the law.
What's the downside to that if there was no real consultation with the people on this one? Because we anticipated it. It was a campaign promise. There were stipulated periods where sometimes we even said it was supposed to be delivered anyway. So there were timelines in the minds of the people. If if you juxtapose the consultation with the people against the massive call for prosecution, which we understand this particular office is supposed to do, which one would have been more important?
What would have been more important is the option we've taken to
Really?
get public views and perspectives into the making of the bill into a law, in order to enrich the bill, in order to have a very strong law which can pass the test of time.
Okay.
If we had taken the other option, what it will mean is that the bill would have been restricted to the opinions of the members of the committee and by extension, the plenary.
Yeah.
The plenary. But we have a lot of civil society organizations that have a lot of interest.
But you are aware some of them were also engaged prior to the bill coming to Parliament. I particularly was aware of those meetings where civil society groupings have shared their opinion, especially on the Article 88 part and its impact on this particular bill.
That meeting was taken to which we were not invited.
Oh, okay.
So the moment a bill gets to Parliament, it's a different ball game altogether.
Okay.
It's the Parliament then becomes seized with the jurisdiction of the bill to deal with the bill. And it is for Parliament to decide which modalities to adopt in order to make the bill, if you like, stronger, in order to get a very strong law.
There are those who are proposing that the main reason, perhaps the latent reason why this particular bill was not taken to the certificate of urgency, because people like you realize that it was having several constitutional implications that you couldn't unravel immediately by the provisions that were in this particular bill.
And that's a constitutional, if you like, difficulty was surmounted by the Attorney General at the time they were putting the bill together. So the issue as to whether the bill will be ultra vires the Constitution, it's not an issue anymore. But what we need to do is to ensure that this bill is crafted in such a way that all the provisions embedded in the bill will not be ultra vires the Constitution. This is what, as a committee, we need to do, and that is what we are certain to do.
And that couldn't have been done by the people who put together the bill? That's the Attorney General's department, with a plethora of lawyers and the competences they have in that particular
they have done their part.
Yeah.
You see, when a bill comes before Parliament, it's a different ballgame altogether. You see, let me tell you, at the consideration stage of a bill, a lot of provisions can be amended. This is predicated upon memoranda that may have come to Parliament by experts or civil society organizations. Thus may come about as a result of certain opinions that may be expressed by members of Parliament. So when it gets to Parliament, especially when it gets to the consideration stage, it becomes a different ballgame altogether. That is why it is imperative that anytime a bill emanates from the office of the Attorney General and gets to Parliament, you see, all this that we'll be doing it with the Attorney General herself.
I get your point. Now, let me also get this particular issue clarified. There are still those who contest the object of this particular bill. They say the Director of Public Prosecutions has all the powers bestowed on you in this particular bill, except for the fact that without political will, nobody, even in an independent special prosecutor position, will be able to function. Does this bill address that particular good governance issue raised?
Yeah, it addresses a good governance. You know, the memorandum explains the philosophy behind the bringing of this bill before Parliament. We have gone past that stage. It explains why this bill is necessary and this bill has to be passed.
But the minority does not think that the bill actually is fit for purpose.
No, I don't think the minority objects to the passage of the bill.
No, they object to the mode of the passage, 1. 2, they object to the rationale behind this, even though they actually agree that having to set up the office may be a good idea.
No, what is the mode of the I don't think what came up in Parliament, the issue that came up in Parliament for debate was an issue that relates to the laying of the bill. The laying of the bill. Yeah. They were of the opinion that to the extent that the bill had been gazetted, the 14-day period should have elapsed before the bill was introduced before Parliament. And they think that was not done. So that was ultra-virus the Constitution. That was the reason why they objected to the laying of the bill. But to the best of my knowledge and to the best of my understanding, I know that the minority, strictly speaking, and in principle, does not object to the passage of the bill. The committee is constituted by members from the majority and members on from the minority. There is no point at all material times the minority has not given any indication, you see, any indication that they are opposed to the passage of the bill. What they had an issue with, as I'm talking to now, has been solved.
That's the Gazette issue?
Yes,
okay.
Gazette issue.
Let me be clear.
Rectified.
In the same seat you sat, two members of this particular minority. First, the former Deputy Attorney General, and that's Dr. Ayinde.
Dr. Ayinde, yes.
He was very clear in his mind that the bill may not solve any problem at all. So what's the point?
It will solve a problem.
Also, I spoke just last week to Mahama Yariga, who heads the Subsidiary Legislation Committee of Parliament. He also expressed a similar thinking about being much ado about nothing, and that the realities on the grounds may prevent anybody, regardless of the powers clothed in that particular capacity, to function to T. I mean, I'm just wondering why you still insist that they are not in any way of the opinion this is not going anywhere.
You see, when you look at the architecture of the bill, one of the reasons why the office is being created is that the Attorney General does multi-purpose functions. She's a politician. She can be fired as just as she can be hired by the president. But the office of the special prosecutor is being created in such a way that the removal of the occupant of the office will be a bit difficult. That is why, first of all, the special prosecutor office is being made a body corporate. Okay. That is why, in the second place, the nomination of the special prosecutor will be done by the Attorney General, appointed by the President, and approved by Parliament. That is why the office of the special prosecutor has a special fund created by the Act, funded by Parliament, and from other sources, so that you will not get a situation.
Forgive me, but I am worried why you are convinced that merely because it's the Attorney General that's appointing the person, when you agree that Attorney General is also appointed by a different person, that person would have the independence and the insulation to do your work. How do you come to that conviction?
I come to the conviction that the moment the person is appointed, it will be difficult for the person to be removed. The person, to a large extent, will have a security.
Where will the person derive his or her powers from?
The person is deriving his powers from the Attorney General per the Constitution.
Interesting.
But the bill or the law doesn't give the Attorney General the power to remove the person. There are stated methodologies, or there are stated procedures or reasons for which the occupant of the office of the special, if you like, prosecutor can be removed. And unless any of the reasons is established or has been established, the person cannot be removed.
But you may not be removed, but you'll be rendered useless, really.
How can the person be rendered useless? The person has been
vested. The Attorney General still has the ultimate responsibility of actually prosecuting all issues. Is not true?
The Attorney General, yes. The Attorney
General has ceded some small powers to an institution, and you have the considered opinion that that particular institution can really be effective.
Yes, it can be effective. Once the Attorney General seats...
When is apron strings are still attached to the
it doesn't matter.
Attorney General.
You see, it doesn't matter. But once the Attorney General... The Attorney General is also somebody that I know. She has the moral and the political will to fight corruption.
And you're of the opinion that all Attorney Generals will be having that particular moral and political will to do so.
That is why when you want to fight corruption, the political and the moral will of the president or the leadership is of paramount importance. But you can't at all times get a president who has the moral and the political will to fight corruption like Nana Addo Akufo-Addo.
Okay.
A time may come where he would not be president any longer. That is why in the wisdom of Nana Akufo-Addo and in the wisdom of the MPP, we thought that in order that we can fight corruption and fight it decisively, that political will and the political commitment ought to be reduced into writing so that anybody who comes as a president will have a document to rely upon so that it will not any longer be at the whims and caprices of the president. Anytime probably the president thinks that this is the person who has committed an act of corruption, this is the person that has to be punished, then the person will be punished. But once there is a written law, the law says that anybody who engages him or herself in such an act of corruption has to be dealt with by the office of the special prosecutor. Then the occupant of the office of the president will not have the opportunity to decide that, oh, this person, Mr. A, has to be punished. Mr. B doesn't have to be punished. So Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, in his wisdom, thinks that the only way to deal with corruption is to create the office of the special prosecutor.
Can the Attorney General insist that even if a matter is before the special prosecutor's office, it can still deal with the matter? Can the Attorney General do that?
The Attorney General can come in. Yes.
Can the Attorney General take over a case from the special prosecutor?
To the best of my knowledge and to the architecture of the 1992 Constitution, yes, the Attorney General, to a large extent, legally speaking, can. But this bill has been crafted, and come in, this bill has been crafted in such a way that the special prosecutor, the special prosecutor has been given the powers to initiate prosecution, to initiate investigation, and the powers to initiate criminal proceedings against anybody who is alleged to have committed acts of corruption or acts relating to a corruption. So even if the Attorney General will come in, the Attorney General will come in probably in a case where, in the wisdom of the Attorney General thinks that this is a matter that she will have to come in. Otherwise, at all material times, every power to initiate investigation, every power to initiate proceedings against anybody who has allegedly committed an act of corruption is vested in the office of the special prosecutor.
Okay, there is a specific provision on the kind of issues that the special prosecutor can interrogate. There's an area in terms of what's called corruption in public procurement. That's stated, right?
Yeah, that's stated.
So what would be the crime in this case?
The crime in this case is that there is a law in the Public Procurement Act.
Yes.
Certain procurement will have to follow a due process. So if there is a breach in relation to the Public Procurement Act, such that it can be established that Mr. A or a public officer has committed an act of corruption or has gone contrary.
Okay, so
has gone contrary.
Let me be clear on my question. Okay, please.
Has gone contrary to the dictates, of the Public Procurement Act, as to arouse a situation or to raise a situation of suspicion of having committed a crime. That matter can be taken up by the office of the special prosecutor.
Is there any crime or criminal charge in this republic which is called corruption of the Public Procurement Act or corruption in the public procurement process? Is there anything like that?
Corruption in the public procurement?
Yes. I'm asking, does the Criminal and Other Offences Act dictate that there's a specific, what they call a crime, called corruption of the Public Procurement Act?
There is not a corruption. I mean, what is the meaning of corruption in the Public Procurement Act?
So
corruption.
So
corruption. Corruption is to take money from the state coffers, if you like, through dishonest means.
That's corruption.
That's corruption.
Who defines that way?
It is defined in the law.
This law?
What is corruption? Yes. No, not in this law, but corruption is, I mean, the definition of
Which
corruption.
law defines corruption?
Which law defines corruption? If you go to the if you go to Act 30, corruption is defined. If you, in like the same way, if you...
Sorry, which section is that? I want to be clear in my mind.
I can't specifically give you the section because I can't specifically give you the section, but definition of corruption is a common knowledge.
I get your point. Yes, and I also understand it's a common knowledge. Yeah. But my difficulty in this particular case is that when you say that, and I'm sure you know it's in there, I don't know if it's been reviewed and I've probably taken out, since, and I've not seen the updated one when you actually took it out and brought it back. But when you say that it will also deal with corruption in the public procurement process, which is in this particular bill, what does it really mean?
What it means is that if there is a procedure you have to follow and you don't.
In the public procurement process.
And
so is that a breach of the Public Procurement Act, rather?
Yes, a breach. But a breach. Yes. A breach which results
in corruption?
A breach.
Or a breach arising out of corruption?
Yeah, a breach which results in the loss of money, or a breach which results in probably the public officer having taken money as a result of that. That will be deemed to be the corruption.
Interesting. And why public procurement anyway?
Why public procurement?
Yes.
Public procurement is a law.
Yes, I know,
and
but why select public procurement as an area that the special prosecutor has to deal with?
Because a lot of government purchases go through the public procurement processes.
Yes.
And that is where, if like, a lot of deals are done.
Deals as in corrupt deals?
Yes, that is where a lot of deals
is it a belief or there are facts to back
allegedly done. So
but you would want to believe that, I mean, if government is putting together a bill, they would have done some investigation. They would have established that there are facts to back a claim or a massive belief, even if it's widely perceived by the people to be so. Don't you think so?
Of course, yes.
So I just want to know what the main, basis for this belief that lots of procurement deals are in corrupt hands.
When you read Auditor General's report, if you read the Auditor General's report, day in, day out, there's a problem with respect to sole sourcing. You know it. It's a common knowledge. I don't have to tell you. You're a journalist.
There's a problem.
There's a problem with respect
to... What's the problem?
Every procurement is done through... A lot of procurement are done through sole sourcing.
But that's not true too.
A lot. I said a lot, but I didn't say all. I mean,
with the when you say a lot, is it more than half? Is it less than half?
I can't give you the specifics. But
yes, but how do you conclude that a lot are done through?
A lot of contracts are done through sole sourcing. You know it. And I'm not saying that sole sourcing is unlawful.
But I'm saying that it is not true.
It's not true that.
Because I've actually spoken to the Public Procurement Authority currently, and it says it's between 5 to 7%. So it cannot be said to be a lot.
So if it is true, what is your basis for saying that? What is the evidence?
It's not true that a lot of them are...
No, you see, you are also quoting from somebody else.
Yes, I'm quoting from the people who are in charge of the process.
And what is the evidence?
And it's stated on public record.
But you know, all jokes, you know that there is a lot of concern about contracts being given through sole sourcing. You don't.
I agree with the concern,
and
but I'm just saying that for government to be able to select an area, it would have necessarily have had basis to say that the preponderance of the corrupt deals happen in this area.
Of course, yes.
Honorable, we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll be looking at the other areas that the president seeks to fight corruption. We're still live on UPfront today. We're looking at how the president, Akufo-Addo, is fighting corruption in this republic. My guest today is the Honorable Ben Abdallah Banda. He's the MP of Finso South, and also the very gentleman chairing the Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee of Parliament. Welcome back to UPfront. My name is Raymond Akwa, and my guest today is the chairman of the Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee of Parliament. He's also the member of Parliament for Finso South. We've been talking about how President Akufo-Addo is or intends to fight corruption. and what's been done so far. Welcome back, Honorable.
Yeah, thank you.
So we left off on the pace of what's been happening with the special prosecutor's bill. And you told us that next week you're going to do some consultation, and this consultation will spiral into when Parliament comes in, then you consider this bill. Will we get this bill ready by end of the year?
Yeah, we should. That is why we intend doing it. We will have finished before Parliament resumes, and we would have prepared our report. And when Parliament resumes, we'll submit the report before the plenary, and then the bill will be taken through the second reading. Having done that, then we'll get to the consideration stage. That is where probably it will take a little bit of time. When that is over, then it will just go through. And we intend to do all this before, if you like, the end of October.
Okay, that's interesting.
All things being equal.
So by end of October, we'd have had the public
all things being equal.
Office set up already.
No, not necessarily set them up, because when we finish.
Okay, so you pass it.
No, when it is passed into a law, I think the plan is that it has to be captured in the budget. Which will be read in November.
Okay, so the Office of Special Prosecutor will really come into effect in next year.
Not necessarily. Once the bill is passed and it is captured in the budget in November, depending on the
budget is for next year, not this
year.
I
know. When it is captured, yes, as soon as the office comes into being, the occupant will be appointed. We'll go through the procedure. Okay, probably we have to give ourselves up to the end of the year. Come early next year, the office will start in full operation and in full effect.
Okay, now let me come, before we set up this particular office, there are corruption issues that ought to be dealt with. And I'll come to how they are being dealt with. But what is it with the former Attorney General, Martin Amidu? He says that you are inviting him through the media space to make contributions. You've seen his critique?
Yes, I've seen his critique.
Are those legitimate issues?
I won't say no.
But are you saying yes?
And I won't say yes.
Oh.
Let me answer the question. With respect to his invitation, we called him on the phone. I instructed my clerk to call him. And then when she called him, he said he was abroad. And we called him because we know he has a lot of experience so far as the office of the Attorney General is concerned, and he has a lot of knowledge. He told us he was in London. So she told him his letter was ready. So whom should she deliver the letter to? She couldn't get any precise answer. But we are told he's back. So I've instructed my clerk today to call him again for him to show her where she can deliver the letter to him. And I think that will be done. And when it is so done, I think that he will come, because he has a lot of experience and a lot of thought to share with us. I've seen his critique, and he's entitled to his opinion. I also have my opinion.
Do you hold differing legal opinion on the issues he raised?
I also have my opinion. At appropriate time, I will let my opinion bear for everybody. It's not my opinion, but it's the opinion of the committee, and it's the opinion
but you're a lawyer,
of the plenary.
You are a lawyer. You certainly will have an opinion on some of these
issues.
Yes,
it will be difficult for a lawyer to say his colleague lawyer is wrong, but you disagree with the person.
I agree. Do you disagree with the person?
Yes, not in all respects. In some respects.
One issue you disagree with is what? Main issue.
In fact, what he said was that
the scope of this particular is an issue he raised.
He raised an issue relating to
the scope. Do you agree or disagree with the scope?
Not the scope, because he said
that the functions are being limited to specific issues.
No, he said the functions are being limited to specific issues. Like the special prosecutor will only come in when the corruption being alleged is of a nature, is of, if you like, a huge nature. Let me put it for. And he is saying that that ought not to be the case. Every corruption is corruption, be it petty corruption or be it gargantuan corruption. And to that extent, the jurisdiction of the occupant of the office ought to be triggered as soon as it is alleged that somebody has doubled him or herself in corruption. It doesn't matter the amount. That's what he's saying. Pardon?
You disagree?
Oh, I don't know, but let's get to.
But you said you had points you disagreed with.
Yes.
That's why I wanted you to state one of those contentious issues you think
yes,
you disagree with him on.
Yes, this one he said it, but the point that he raised very good, which I think that I disagree with him, is where he said that the special prosecutor doesn't need parliamentary approval because it's not sanctioned by the Constitution. That point I disagree with him.
Why do you disagree with him?
I disagree with him, number one. The Constitution doesn't prohibit parliamentary approval on this particular issue.
Does it provide for parliamentary approval?
Yes, it doesn't prohibit it.
Does it provide for parliamentary approval?
But the point is that at the time the Constitution was promulgated, the framers of the Constitution did not envisage the creation of such an office. So if like Yoko, for instance, was not envisaged, but subsequently Yoko was created through an act of parliament. If you read Article 2, I think Article 298 or something like that, it says that where the Constitution doesn't make a provision for a certain situation, that situation can be catered for through an act of parliament.
Okay.
So what we are saying is that Article 88 gives the power of prosecution to the Attorney General. The Attorney General is ceding some of her powers to the special prosecutor. And what we as members of parliament are doing is that what we are saying, in order to ensure the security of tenure, or maybe the government is doing, in order to ensure the security of tenure for the special prosecutor, is that after the person has been appointed, the person must go through parliamentary procedure, parliamentary approval before he gets the nod. I think to that extent, that is not unconstitutional. That is not unconstitutional because the Constitution doesn't make a provision for that. And we are making a provision for that through an act of parliament.
Okay, I get your point. I mean, I think that's clarifying. And this debate surely will happen when we open up the floor for us to contribute to the matter in detail. Now, I want you to lay out clearly for me, since President Akufo-Addo became president, what has he done to fight corruption? And this is excluding a bill that's being passed. That's this particular bill.
The president has shown a lot of commitment.
What does that mean?
Okay, has demonstrated through a lot of proclamations, if you like. Statements. That
the talk.
Yes, that he abhors corruption. That is very significant.
But respectfully, no president in this fourth republic has actually done the opposite anyway.
But there's a record. You know, there is a record abounds that Nana Akufo-Addo is somebody who is incorruptible. That is a common knowledge.
What I'm asking is about the fight against corruption as president.
It starts with statements. If you don't make the statement, I mean, the kind of political will and commitment that the people expect from you will not come, will not be known. At our recently held MPP delegate conference,
he retreated what he had said before.
When he went to London, he said the fight against corruption must be won.
But sorry, is that a president in this republic who said the fight must not be won?
He's not ending it there.
Yes.
He's not ending it there. Now, as I'm talking to you, there is an auditing going on of the public sector.
Governments do all the time.
Yes, in order to determine the extent of corruption that this country is struggling with.
Because there's a presumption of corruption.
Yes.
It's not a presumption of corruption.
Corruption is everywhere.
Because the NPP in opposition made specific allegations of corruption.
Yes.
Indeed, why is the NPP not prosecuting these specific allegations of corruption?
You can't just, we assumed office.
Yes. In
January. We are about 7 months old. You know, you can't just get up and prosecute without having probative evidence.
Did the NPP know that in opposition?
You see, yes. Those were allegations of corruption, but having taken office, We need to investigate because at that
were
time,
there basis for making these allegations?
Yes.
Were there evidence for making the allegations?
Yes, there was basis. You yourself know there was basis.
If there was
the
basis
smart deal, you know, it's one alleged act of corrupt practice.
But that particular issue was substantively dealt with.
You know it.
Yes, was also substantively dealt with. What's the matter there again?
Yes, and
so you are going to reopen old corruption issues that have been...
those that have been dealt with by courts will not be gone into.
So which ones is the NPP going to deal with now? Which ones specifically?
That one rests within the powers of the Attorney General.
So you said they are investigating specific ones. Which ones are we dealing with?
That one I can't tell because I don't work in the Attorney General's office.
I get your point, but can you also tell me, specifically in this particular case, you mentioned some cases that are in times past, the allegations were actually surrounded. And you also said that there's an audit generally. How long will this audit last?
As for when it will last, honestly speaking, I can't tell you.
When do you expect anybody to be put before court on any issue of corruption
I think this question should go. I'm not the right person to answer.
Would you want to ask the question of the people in charge? Because you're actually chair of the legal
Now that you are telling me, now that you want to know from me when people will be put before a court, when people will be put before court, let me do my investigation.
Is the Honorable MP not interested in this question from
I'm very much interested, but
I
don't have the answer.
Should be asking consistently.
No, I'm very much interested, but I don't have the answer. And you see, it is well to
but
know.
See,
let me also add
issues that have come out immediately.
Let me also add
Sorry,
one.
I'll come to that particular one, but there are some issues that have come out immediately. The National Communications Authority issue.
Yes.
The Ministry of Information promised the people of this republic the people involved will be prosecuted. Yeah. Why haven't we seen the prosecution today?
Did we give a timeline as to when we prosecute all these people?
Actually,
we didn't give a timeline.
Within a week. We are told that within the week they went to court.
Who said within a week?
The Minister of Information dictated so.
No, I don't have those facts. But you know, before you can prosecute, you must have a legal and legitimate basis before you prosecute. You must gather your facts. Haven't done your investigation before you go to court.
Okay.
If you don't organize yourself well and you hurriedly go to court, you may end up losing your case.
I'm asking this question maybe again. How long would it take the NPP to organize itself to go to court on
all
of the issues that
we have a 4-year mandate. We have a 4-year mandate.
So we should wait till which year?
Which year?
Yes.
I'm not the right person to answer the question, but it will be done.
Okay. You are hopeful it will be done.
Yeah, I think so.
What gives you the hope that it will be done?
What gives me the hope that it will be done is that I know investigations will be done or investigations are being done.
Okay, now, but you can't tell us where they are being done.
No, I can't tell you when it will end.
But you can't tell us which specific areas of government or previous or whichever nature these investigations are.
I don't have any knowledge of that.
But how do you know then that they are being done?
I have no knowledge of that.
But if you don't have knowledge of it, how do you know that they are being done?
But I know some investigations are being done. I know. But I don't know which specific agencies
you are being told that investigations are being done.
Yes.
So your level of information is like what has been put in the public domain.
But I don't know. I don't know which areas the investigations are being conducted in.
Okay, so beyond proclamation of an intent to prosecute and the promise of investigations, which you say is currently happening, what else is government doing to fight corruption?
You know, there is, if you've heard that there is a complaint reporting center at the office of the president. Have you heard that? Where people who have complaints of the corruption, alleged corruption,
So they've established
a complaint reporting center at the office of the president.
It has always been there,
very well, but that has been done. You see, apart from all this,
so what does that office do? Sorry,
people will report complaints.
How do they do with that?
You go and lodge your complaint. If you have
so you can walk to the office of the president.
Yes, if you have any complaint relating to a financial malfeasance.
Okay.
You can lodge a complaint. It's just like any other complaint. In the office of the president, the office of the president is a public office. Day in, day out, people go there.
Okay.
You understand? It's just like any other office. If you go to the office of the president right now, you see a lot of people going in and some people going out.
So
So
far,
it's a
do you know
public
whether
office.
some people have lodged complaints in this office?
That one, I have no knowledge.
So what is that office supposed to do? When they get the complaints, do what?
When they get a complaint, they will then send the complaint either to the Attorney General. If the office becomes operational, they will send some of the complaints there.
If the Special Prosecutor's Office becomes operational?
Operational. They'll
Okay.
send, because acts of corruption and corruption-related matters will be dealt with by the Attorney.
Who is
by the
manning
office.
this office?
As to the person manning the office, I have no knowledge. But I know there is a complaint reporting center in place at the Office of the President.
How different is it from the previous government's own?
As for the previous government owned, I don't know. But I know for sure that the MPP has this kind of complaint reporting center at the Office of the President.
Why are you not directing these complaints to the police stations across the country?
We want to establish as many complaint centers as possible so that wherever anybody feels free to go and lodge a complaint, that person will have to go. So you may decide to go to the police to lodge a complaint. When the Office of the Special Prosecutor becomes operational, you can't go there and lodge a complaint. If you want to go to the Office of the President, there is a complaint reporting center where you can lodge your complaint. Okay.
Interesting. I wish we could talk more about this particular office, but I have two more questions to ask. Yes. One, the status of the Delta 13 case. I understand the docket has been prepared. Are you equally disappointed, like many Ghanaians, about how that particular issue is being dealt with?
What kind of disappointment are you talking about? It's being handled.
I see. I mean,
it's being handled.
There was non-protocol filed because apparently somebody did not do a good job. They are hoping for that particular investigation to be done. We understand that they are gathering evidence. Some say because it's political crime, that's why it's being dealt with that way.
You see, non-protocol is a common practice. You see,
especially when it comes to political crimes.
The fact that you've taken somebody to court or you've gone to court doesn't mean that you have to win your case at all costs. You see, when you go to court, it's not always about the truth.
Will government successfully prosecute this particular issue?
Why not? The government has demonstrated its political will and commitment to prosecute anybody. That's why in the first
one example of a government prosecution which was successful.
When this incident
forgive me, I want one example of a government prosecution which is a demonstration of the will in this particular case.
Yeah, the Delta issue, some people were prosecuted and convicted.
The fines the people are asked to pay?
That's a conviction.
I see.
Or you don't know that a fine is a conviction.
I agree perfectly.
A fine emanates from a conviction. Okay. So that fine, that conviction goes down in the record of that particular person. It's just like, because conviction should not necessarily, it's not always the case that a person who has been convicted has to be given a custodial sentence. It's not always the case.
I get your point, but I'm running out of time now. And Honorable, my last question is the call. Is Parliament corrupt? From how you dealt with the Ayerga probe on Boakye Jako, is Parliament still having that particular anchor of corruption hanging on its head?
No, we dealt with that the way we thought it ought to be dealt with.
Did you
to the best of our knowledge.
CCTV cameras?
Yes, we did.
What was on the CCTV cameras?
We made our reports public.
Really?
Yes, we made our report public.
What did they say about? What did they say about the CCTV cameras?
Yes, we didn't see anything.
You didn't see anything.
In fact, we said so many times with our number that we watched it and we didn't see anything. So the recommendation we sent to Parliament is a public document. You can.
I get you, but I've run out of time. I wish I could prove that further, but thank you so much. The Honorable Ben Abdullah Banda is the Offenso MP and also the chairman of the Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee of Parliament. We've been talking about President Akufo-Addo's fight against corruption. Thanks so much for joining us on our front today.